talk about one of the most intelligent people who ever lived that you never heard of. I've written a famous book on what magnetism is, the first person in the world to discover how magnetism works. Yes, believe it or not, the book is free, I'm not selling it. Some people think that, I just pulled all these things together, just yanked them out of my fanny, and wrote a book on magnetism. None of these people knew how magnetism worked, but what it was intrinsically. But I would have never been able to get there without the works of people like this. This guy, before he died, and he's the crippled little person who is not only a dwarf, but I forget the type of achondroplasia, where actually his hips are bent in like an angle. Could barely walk. Ever could barely walk. Always had a big fat cigar in his mouth. Charles Proteus Steinmetz. Before he died, he had more patents than you could shake a stick at. Wrote more books. If you took all of his books and laid them on someone's chest as they were laying down, you would kill the person. You would crush them. That many books. General Electric considered this guy a god. Now, you see this person behind him? Now, here's the idiot Einstein standing next to him. Ironically, the only reason this picture was taken was because the famous idiot Einstein was visiting that day. He actually didn't work with these intelligent people. So, actually, the one famous guy in this picture is the person who did not work at the Marconi wireless system. Actually, he was not intelligent enough. That's actually something really important about this picture that nobody ever remarks on. It's like, here's Einstein. The only reason that picture was taken, everybody did a group photo, is because this idiot was visiting. But he didn't work with all these other brilliant minds. You'll notice behind Steinmetz is this character. There's Nikola Tesla right there. He looks really deadpan. Anyway, yeah. The only person that was not smart enough to work here was the one guy who the picture was taken for, which was Einstein. Anyway, and by the way, Charles Proteus Steinmetz, he did a lot of proofreading on the math of Einstein, pointing out all his countless errors, so he helped him a lot. So even though Einstein was not only a fool, and he never invented anything, and all he did was have a theory, he actually had to have his math checked by the little tiny dwarf right there. Most brilliant person who ever lived. Nobody's ever heard of Steinmetz. There's so few people who... Here he is in his canoe writing his book. Now, a lot of people give Nikola Tesla credit for the AC generator, which of course he did patent. But the AC generator never would have existed because there was a lot of other things that needed to be solved, and they were only solved by Steinmetz here. Like the lamination of steel to make the generator, the three-phase system, the understanding of electrical hysteresis. It's actually Steinmetz who actually got the Niagara Falls generator power system up and bringing energy, electricity to Buffalo, New York. I mean, it was... Without his understanding in his books and his math. By the way, some of his equations, this is fascinating, even though he died almost 100 years ago. 1924, I believe he died, 1864 to 1923 or 24. Yeah, someone's going to correct me on that. Some of his equations have never been solved. One of his equations is very famous, and Eric Dollar talks about it often. It's 6 pages long, and nobody's ever solved it. It's so complicated. This guy was a genius. I would not have been able... This is an excerpt from his book. Right in here... Now, the diagram is from James Clerk Maxwell, but his writings on the nature of dielectricity, electrostatics, magnetism, and the dielectric field, and the nature that electricity, by the way, is a hybrid. Phi times psi equals Q in Planck of electrification. His books, if you want to read them, they'll actually warp your brain. They're too complicated for you. Even if you have a PhD in electrical engineering, I would give someone $1 million if I had. It's like, read Charles Proteus Steinmetz, one of his books like on lightning phenomena and electrical circuits, and try to explain it. They'll never do it. You could take the best electrical minds on Earth today, electrical engineering, PhD in electrical, they still don't know what the hell this little hunchbacked dwarf wrote about. I know you're not supposed to say midget. I know it's a derogatory term. Actually, I've got these links below. These are two important pages. These are like the really, really simple pages. An electrical field, properly called dielectric field, issues forth from conductors. Talk about the dielectric field. Anyway, the guy was amazing. A theory on general alternating current transformers, theory and calculation of AC phenomena, the AC induction motor, speed regulation of prime movers and parallel operating alternators, theoretical elements of electrical engineering, alternating current railway motors, lightning phenomena, electrical engineering education, general equations of electrical circuit, general lectures on electrical engineering, the value of the classics of engineering education, radiation, light, and illumination, engineering mathematics, mechanical forces and magnetic fields, outline of the theory of impulse currents, theory and calculation of electrical apparatuses, the general equations of the electrical circuit, volumes 1, 2, and 3. There's another 7-volume series here, too. High voltage insulation, frequency conversion, third class, mechanical arcing ground, and other cumulative forces, cable charge, discharge, overamp, condenser, oscillation. In other words, he's smarter than all you people combined. This diagram, which he got from James Clerk Maxwell, obviously, but which he defines, there's actually a secret in this book on transient fields, and without some of the clues, and by the way, most of anybody that's familiar with Eric Dollard got a lot of the stuff that he understood from this little hunchbacked guy. I heard when he was born, he was so deformed. Most of the pictures of him are him leaning against a table because it was the only comfortable way he could do anything. He was so deformed, his body was so deformed, and his basically his body was shaped like a boomerang. And I think that when he was born, they wanted to kill him. One story was when he was born, he was so horribly deformed they wanted to kill him. He immigrated from Germany. He was Prussian, and he immigrated from Germany to America. Endless patents. In the end, General Electric built him a laboratory, and General Electric, in his many of his years, basically considered the guy a god. There's this poor little guy that can barely hobble along with a cane, walking around the General Electric, some of the buildings there, wondering. Everybody knew who the guy was. There's only one person that looked like that, and this guy was literally the untouchable. Not untouchable meaning bad, but untouchable like this is it. I mean, General Electric would not exist but for him. Nikola Tesla and his AC generator, God knows how long it would have taken to have perfected it without this guy. While Tesla invented the AC generator, it took a tremendous amount of work and perfection, like laminating the steel, understanding transient current electrical phenomena, from Charles Proteus Steinmetz to figure out actually how to make the AC generator work efficiently, work correctly. Just because you invent something doesn't mean it doesn't need a tremendous amount more. He held patents for the induction dynamo, a patent for the system of electrical distribution, which is huge. Basically, the entire world and the system of electrical distribution doesn't rely on Tesla. It relies on this very crooked, deformed, giant cigar-smoking little dwarf. Every little person in the world, every dwarf in the world should have this guy as their hero. The entire electrical, well, it's based on Tesla, right? No. It's based on this guy. The induction motor, the system of electrical distributions, the means of producing light, the induction furnace, the protective device, the inductor dynamo, All of these patents. He held over 200 patents. Over 200. Kiss my ass. Over 200. And people, oh, well, everybody's heard of Nikola Tesla. You mentioned Charles Proteus Steinmetz. People are like, who the hell? Well, I never heard of that guy before. Oh, well, this is the guy, standing right in front of Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla is back here, and this is Charles Proteus Steinmetz. One hand on his cane, which you basically can't see. He also, the way he's actually tilted and his jacket's hanging, you can't actually see how crooked his body is. I mean, the dude could barely walk. He's actually the guy that gave you, literally, the current system of electrical distribution. This is the guy that General Electric would not exist today if it were not for this little deformed dwarf that I think, from the stories, are when he was born, that they wanted to, it's like, oh my God, we need to kill this poor child, literally. Whether that story is true or not, it makes sense, and it's, apparently it's true. Whether it is or not, I don't know. It's like, oh, this poor child, we have to kill him, as soon as he was born. So, in his books are so important to understanding not only space and counter space. By the way, Eric Dollard, who's a genius in his own right, said that you will never, a statement that he made, one of his most important statements was that you will never understand electricity, magnetism, and dielectricity without understanding counter space. Trans-Euclidean. This is basically in reference to inertia. It doesn't matter if you call it inertia, ether, or counter space. All those terms refer to one thing. Pure, unmanifest, zero-point potential. Science fiction likes to call it zero-point energy. I don't give a damn what anybody calls it. Calling something, I call it this. Who gives a damn what you call it? Okay? It's unmanifest pure potential, i.e. inertia, or the ether, or counter space. He said if you don't understand counter space, you will never understand electrical theory. And where did Eric Dollard get that from? Well, he got it from the guy that gave you all of this crap, whatever country you're living in, United States, Poland, Russia, Australia. It's like, oh, well, Nikola Tesla invented the AC. No, none of this shit would work without this crooked little hunchback dwarf. I'm not making fun of him. I'm not, because he's like a hero. None of this crap would exist or work, and General Electric would not be alive, but for this guy's books and his comprehension and his laser-like focus and his brilliant mind. Over 200 patents, more books. I mean, the books he wrote alone, oh my God, one of them is like 7 volumes, and, it was like, oh, that's just one of his books, and it's 7 volumes, and it's like, goes from here to over to here. Oh my God. Really? Whew, damn. Oh, by the way, also, he was a photographer. There are a lot of photographs that he took. He was inspired one night when lightning arced inside his cabin, his lake cabin. He had a cabin on the lake. He would actually go out in his canoe, and I've got a picture here of him in his canoe. And he's out there, he'd paddle himself out to the middle of the lake, and he'd sit there and write all day long, smoking his big-ass cigar, and coming up with the math that would define all of modern electrical engineering. Anyway, lightning hit his cabin there on the lake, where he would go to seclude himself and to study and write. And it hit the mirror, and then the mirror shattered all over his bed, and that inspired him to write a fascinating book which basically defines everything as far as lightning arresters, and all of lightning arresters and electrical insulators are based on the math and the work of him in his cabin getting struck by lightning and exploding his mirror, and dropping the glass all over his bed spread, and he scratched his beard, and then he dreamt up a new book that defined everything that we use for lightning arresters and insulators. His books will bend your damn mind. I mean, they will cross your eyeballs and make you want to pluck out your brain. They're not for casual readers. And so here we have it, folks, the most intelligent person that you never heard of. And whenever you turn on your light or, look at the power lines going down your street, it's like, well, Tesla invented the AC generator. This guy held over 200 patents, and Tesla's AC generator would have taken God knows how many decades to perfect, because there's all these things that have to do with electrical hysteresis, current distribution, getting the AC generator to work correctly, which Tesla didn't know that you needed to create laminated steel to get the AC generator to work efficiently and correctly, transient currents, how to actually build the electrical grid. That is due to this crooked-bodied, gigantic cigar-smoking dwarf. And his writings on counter space, and he talks about dielectricity all the time. Every time I talk about dielectricity in my book, people are like, I never heard of dielectricity. I don't know what you're talking about. I hate some of the people. I shouldn't say that. The really stupid people, and there are a lot of stupid people. They're like, what are you talking about, dielectricity? And it's like, well, it's like, that must be a word you pulled out of your butt. It's like, well, no, you see this guy that held over 200 patents and wrote over 40 books that created it's like, well, no, not Nikola Tesla. This little dwarf. This little dwarf's books are full of thousands of pages talking about dielectricity. Dielectricity, his math is so complicated that some of his equations have never even, they're so huge, literally, they're so huge. A few of them are so damn huge that even people today can't figure out how the hell to do them, believe it or not. That's a really funny story. Actually, Dollard repeats that, and no one's ever solved his one equation for a particular type of equation of calculating the speed of magnetism under a certain condition, and the equation is absolutely enormous. And, here we see him talking about dielectricity. So, no, that is not a term I pulled out of my fanny in my book on magnetism. I got it from one of the most brilliant people who ever lived. And if you think you're smarter than him, then you might be. No, you are. You're a dumbass. Because I have a lot of people that are always talking about me referencing dielectricity in my book. It's like, where do you get this term from? Well, I got it from one of the most intelligent people who lived. You see, this guy knew the difference between dielectricity, electricity, and magnetism. He knows more about math and electrical theory than all of you people combined. I could take the best minds that exist on planet Earth with PhDs in electrical engineering, and this guy's books. It's like, well, it doesn't matter which one you choose. That book, or the dozens and dozens of other books that he wrote, who General Electric considered to be a god. None of these people can actually make out half of what he writes. Obviously, he was right because he held over 200 patents, and he was smarter than any of the rest of these knuckle-dragging subhuman morons with PhDs in electrical engineering. Because I've even had some of this, like, it's like, you've never heard of dielectricity? These people actually have PhDs. And it's like, well, you never heard of dielectricity? No. Electricity, no, I know. I mean, they don't actually talk, even back in Steinmetz's time. It was even the case in the time of Charles Proteus Steinmetz in the 1920s that the concept and the understanding of how important dielectricity is was basically vanishing. Everybody was thinking in terms of electricity and magnetism, but that's just because they were too stupid to know what he was talking about. Dielectricity is absolutely vital in understanding things. His equations are still the basis for creating electrical systems today. They have remained completely unchanged. It is necessary to use the math of this crooked, hunchbacked little dwarf to create an AC generator delivery system in any country in the world. This little dude smoking a cigar. So there you have it, folks. That's Charles Proteus Steinmetz. Brilliant, genius. I owe some of my understanding of counter space and how magnetism works to his writings. The simplest parts that are comprehensible, because There's a lot of his stuff that is just wow. It's just deeper than the deepest pit imaginable. It's like you're never gonna go there. Your mind isn't even gonna reach what he was understanding, much less what he wrote.